Hi, my name is Hansel Wong. I'm a licensed practicing counselor and supervisor. I think that's a really interesting question. It's a question that I usually get as well. What put me into this work and why am I in it? Initially, I was really interested in psychology. Really, the simple stuff like how memory works, how thought works, how do we turn stimuli from the world into our own reactions, how emotions work and hormones and all that. And that's something that really intrigued me. And what grew beyond that was a learning on how human connection can promote healing and co-regulation. And I found that that was something that not only fascinated me, but something that I wanted to be a part of as well. Uh, Beyond that, as a counselor, you get to sit on a comfy chair and listen to people's stories all day, and what's not to like about that? Therapy can feel like this big ominous step for especially when it comes to someone who's already experiencing a lot of mental health issues. But if a mate of mine were to come and ask for like advice on what should they know, or what advice should they get before coming into therapy, I think I tell them to not think too much about it, right? It's like, think of it like going to a physio or a GP or going to the gym even. You're not going to get like diagnosed or labeled with a disorder. Counseling is essentially sitting across someone who is going to, create a safe space for you to talk about any complex thoughts or emotions that you might be going through. And in the worst case scenario, if it really doesn't work out and you feel uncomfortable, it is 1 hour of your life, right? Another analogy that I like to have is, think of it like you're in a game and you reach a checkpoint, the checkpoint where the game automatically saves, or you reach a point in the game where, you know, before you go to the next stage, you get a bit of a breather, y- you get to unload for a bit, and you get to pause from life. How good does that sound, right? You just take a break for a moment and then you click play and go through it again. A bit. So when clients say something like, nothing's really wrong, but just something feels off. As a counselor, our responsibility is to firstly recommend to have it physiologically checked out, right? Um, because we want to screen through any biological, any medical causes first. And oftentimes the body can signal things faster than our mind can catch on. For example, just a very simple example, like your body feels the aches and pains before you realize, you're down with a fever or a flu, right? Because our mind's like on the grind and locked on most of the time. And it's the same thing with mental health as well, and I noticed that clients who say these things, this particular statement usually come from a place where they have been going through a lot of stresses in life, to the point where they are right now with all the stresses feels normal. So they've normalized it, but not realizing also that there's so much going on right now that they need a bit of reprieve from. On the other hand, there are also clients who have worked so hard to reach a level of stability in their life. Like they've gone through a lot of experience in the past, and they've used that experience to push themselves to create a life that's comfortable and safe, but something still feels off. And more often than not, in that situation, the body and the mind is ready to process the past trauma, because you're already in a safer place to talk about that. But from a therapist perspective, that connection is really what makes or breaks therapy. Um, because, like I said earlier, the human connection is what helps the co-regulation of both the client as well as the therapist. And I I believe, from my years of experience as a counselor, that goes beyond any modality, any tools, or any techniques you can employ. Right? Finding someone who you're comfortable with, someone who you vibe with, and like you said, whether it's background or identity or gender or religion, those things, having similar sort of like identities can help, but maybe even not. someone who's polar opposite from you can have a new point of view, can bring a new point of view for you, can be a breath of fresh air. Uh, an example would be like in smaller cities, smaller towns, having finding someone with the same background and identity and religion carries a higher chance of the person knowing you either through a friend or through a relative. So you may want someone who has a different background for the factor of anonymity as well. Uh, but coming back to the main point, what's most important is you find that connection, someone you can talk to, whether it's the someone around the same age range with you or different age range, same gender, different gender. I think what's important at the end of the day is to give it a try and feel like, hey, I can connect with this person. I can sit down with this person and have a chat, an honest chat about life, and I think that's really the crux of it. Well, fortunately, with the bios on like Good Therapy, it's extensive and it provides a lot of information and it prompts a lot the therapist to provide a lot of information about themselves, about their practice, about their preferences, about their modalities, and clients can take advantage of that. And I think that's really useful because different clients are looking for different things. You may be looking for a particular age group or of a counselor. You may be looking for a specific tool that they can do. And clients know EMDR, ACT, EFT. They know what they're looking for. And what's really important is to comb through that bio and find the therapist that specializes in that. Another common thing that catches the eye of clients is the specific demographics that the counselors work in, whether it's in the neurodivergent population or alcohol and other drugs or sexual abuse victims. You know, these are niches that counselors specialize in, and some um, don't. So it's important to go through the data and really find what counselors suit, uh, whether that fits what you're looking for or not. I'm originally from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and that's where I started my practice. And it's an urban population, right? It's a fast-paced city life. Think rat race, um, high pressure, right? And from there, I moved to Adelaide in South Australia. Uh, Also a city, a bit slower pace and a bit more focused on work-life balance, right? Still urban. But now in both places, the population that I deal with is the millennial population. And with our generation, mental health is pretty freely discussed, right? The stigma sort of lowered with, and we are not only ready to open up about it, but we have the means to reach out for mental health services. Now, what I had to unlearn from this move have a lot to do with the differences in culture. And of course, these are broad generalizations, right? But in KL, like I mentioned, in Kuala Lumpur, where the pace was a bit faster, a lot of the clients' motivations were towards self-actualization. What I mean by that is, I'm trying to get to where I want to be in terms of my life, my career, my the next step, whether it's marriage. It's more solution focused. So when they come into a therapy session and they're sharing their emotions or their complexities and the struggles that they're going through, it's a lot of it is geared towards how does overcoming this bring me to the next level, right? The next stage in life, which is, it could be, like I said, marriage or home ownership or promotion. In contrast, in my experience in Australia is there's a lot of focus more towards acceptance, uh, understanding where the client is, where they're coming from, and being content on where they are. So that as a therapist, I've had to shift gears from the in terms of like what I expect the intent of the client is, right? And that is really a point of growth for me because uh, prior to the move as an expat, this is like the population of KL was all I knew. So coming out of this like glass bowl, seeing another side of the world, another side of the ocean, it really expanded my understanding to to see that different cultures bring different values, uh, and and I have to be a bit more cautious about how I handle clients of different backgrounds. How do you help someone who is struggling with who is a bit reluctant to talk about mental health? And the angle that I usually go with is what are they interested in talking about? Are are they interested in talking about work? Because stress is a very real thing in the workplace. So is burning out. So is midlife crisis. And that can manifest into really physiological symptoms like um, panic attacks, heart attacks, that those things are hard to avoid. If someone is interested in talking about relationships, what are the factors of mental health that take place when someone breaks up or gets into a divorce? Those things are more approachable topics because those are things that you see in society. And there I see a bit fun to gossip about also. So family members like to talk about these things. So lean into those things that people like to talk about and slowly weave in terms like depression, terms like anxiety, and slowly but surely people will start to realize like, hey, it's not really that big of a deal of a taboo to talk about. And maybe there is a bit more weight mm, to discuss this rather than just to ignore it or sweep it under the rug. Uh, in supervision sessions, one thing that I like to encourage counselors to do is is to explore different areas of knowledge, and that can be in the point of view of culture, understanding how the values and beliefs and history of different cultures, their what a family unit is like in an Indian culture, in a Greek culture, in an Italian culture, because that can be as valuable and as important and as practical in counseling sessions as going into a different modality, learning a different tool, learning a different technique. I believe personally, at least, that the tools that you've been equipped with through your master's program is more than sufficient to see you through counseling sessions upon graduation. What find that a lot of counselors like is real world knowledge about different areas of interests, hobbies, um, whether it's shows or games or art, um, involving yourself in culture in that sense. I think it's really crucial because that gives you a really unique toolkit when the client sits across you and starts to talk about something niche, for you to be able to pick that up immediately and say, yeah, I know what you're talking about, immediately builds the connection and immediately wins the client over as someone that they can relate to. Counselor came in for supervision and said that my client started talking about video games, and I'm not a video game person. And my question was like, what video game was it? I'm curious. Like, what game was it? Was it um an open world game? Was it a platform game? What was the name? Go search it up. If you can, play it. So you have a bit more understanding of what the client is going through. Burnout is definitely something that we constantly battle as therapists. And I've spoken to yeah, for me personally, I feel that I really had a good supervisor when I was doing an internship, and he really modeled what managing your own stresses and burnout would be without any like special tools or special techniques. Basically, what he did was, he told me, this is my technique for to decompress after a stressful session. And he just played a game on his phone. And it just blew my mind because, okay, you don't need to do any mindfulness tools. You don't need to go for a walk in the forest. Whatever suits you, find that thing and train your body and your mind to register that this is my space to deregulate. This is my space to relax. And personally, for me, it's getting close to nature. In a sense that I like to take runs down the beach. Adelaide has the most beautiful beaches, and just running across it help me clears my mind, helps my body sort of regulate itself, and help me process what has all the stresses that has happened. Another thing that I like to do is to tend to my plants. Um, and I think that nature also has a lot of things to teach us, because growing plants is both fulfilling and it takes time. And we really need to sometimes, in the fast pace of life, take things slow and understand that growth, uh, growth can only move at its own pace sometimes. I feel that a common belief that we constantly battle with is that once you go for a therapy session, you are labeled as someone who's weak. And particularly an interest for me is towards men's mental health. And I feel like that's a huge stigma and it's so untrue because people who I've sat across with and have spoken about the emotions that they've gone through with such brutal honesty, oh, they're the strongest people that I know. I cannot imagine how much they have gone through and to be able to put those emotions and complex thoughts to words, that's not easy, right? And I think it goes both ways also. For therapists, we always feel like we need to be this perfect pillar of mental health. No, we're not. We are far from that. We are not called to be the person who gives all the answers for mental health. We are just called to be two human beings sitting across each other, just talking about life in a way that sort of regulates each other's emotions. The only difference is that, we are trained to have the ethical considerations, the right questioning skills, create an environment that's safe. So we just create an environment and let the human connection sort of take its place and heal each other. So I think that's really something that I would like people to know, that it doesn't mean that you're weak to come in for therapy. It means that you've taken a step towards a really tough step, and that requires strength.